Lord, 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 oh Lord, oh Lord, oh Lord. You all running out? My big man them, woman them, and non-binary folk them. 100 years of skullduggery. While Tucker Carlson was clamoring because he can't get hard to the brown M&Ms no more, I was being mortified. This is a tale of lost, a dirge of death, a story of skullduggery that tangentially, not even tangentially, directly correlates to Snoop LYING. It's no secret that I train BJJ, and a great deal of people I spar with moonlight as the clan's private escort service. And I like to think that these people that I share some of my most intimate moments with are good people. But from time to time, I get a glimpse of something that just feel anti-black. Like, you ever encounter something that you know is not racist, but it feel racist? Like Snow meet Todd. Mid-30s, in good shape. First day doing BJJ. And I just walking in from the torrential tundra going on outside. So naturally, I pair up with him so I could run him through the drills, because I'm the welcome wagon. And there's something beautiful about BJJ, There's something particularly beautiful because, I always say you can't be racist when you're chest to chest with people of color. How you gonna hate me and I between your legs? Ask the sorority gals that was posting up block squares for Floyd and could juice us behind closed doors. But if you dare to say hi to them when they sisters run, they could do you like Honey Rider did Coral.
Hey, come and take a look. That's all right, he's with me.
Bet your bottom dollar that I bring in this box is way too good to only show you all once. Anyway, my punchlines is going to the next bar like Talib Kweli. What I was talking about. Oh yeah, this. So I doing standing drills with Todd, right? Which is essentially doing throws like this.
This is Z, the judo aficionado, and he's about to show you how to do an Uchimata.
But I ain't even throwing Todd. We just dancing. A slow, steady minuet in 3/4, but with the intentions of throwing him into the floor. And I noticed that Todd is tremendously tense. Like, I talking as tense as your date when you bring it to the crib for the first time and they scared to take their shoes off. I say, Todd, we ain't fighting, we just drilling. You ain't gotta tense up like that, And this man would go on to let out the most pregnant breath that he ever had. Like he gave birth to triplets of breath. So I thought that was his sign of saying that things could change up, right? But my boy going right back to clenching his butt cheeks when we start drilling again. I say, damn, Todd, you must have been to Vietnam. You got PTSD from all them run. That man just calm it down. Todd was acting sketchier than a car from Craigslist. Todd come like he knew what I did last summer. Todd come like I was 50 and he was anybody, because nobody's safe around 50 Cent. And my naive Negro over here trying to figure out what happened to Todd. Everyone else that I have been partnered up with enjoys my enthusiastic approach to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Hence why my sensei continues to put me with the new people so that I could bring them into the sport. But this guy was having the hardest of times with me. Listen, watch this. We was doing drills where we literally had to mount each other. And explaining this out loud, as a cishet black man, there really ain't no way of defending it. Top mount is a position in BJJ and MMA where you are literally straddling the person that you are fighting. Please don't ask for no pictorial depictions of this because I get flagged by YouTube quicker than if I say crack. So I explained to this man that I am about to get on top of you and I apologize in advance for the wait. He gnawed his head, right? Then he proceeds to take the deepest breath. Like, I swear, this man must learn all this from Lamar's classes. He take the deepest breath, and I proceed to throw my leg over him to mount, right? Tell me why this man buck me off like we in a Ross-clad rodeo. I say, Todd, we ain't fighting. I'm not trying to hurt you, Todd. Todd says reflex. And I say, well, your reflex about to send me out the window like Mr. Incredible. I look at my sensei, right? I look at him on the sly. This man over here kikiing. He giggling up himself because he knows that this is a part of the discipline. Being able to teach what you know. You transcend your knowledge of the sport when you are able to articulate it in a way that others, far different from you even, can appreciate and gain knowledge and understanding of it. So my sensei on his master splinter, right? He looking at me like, yeah, you gotta deal with rowdy rebels because I had to deal with rowdy rebels, you know? You was a blue belt, so now you gotta learn how to do this. So I switch up the flow on Todd, right? And I did some small talk, you know? I ain't going, you know, sometimes you just have to ease yourself in. You can't just, you know, go balls in the wall, no lube, just, you know, go. You have to ease it in a little bit, you see? And let me tell you something, my soldier, guess what? Todd starts self-reporting all kind of things. Todd starts saying some things. I asked Todd, you know, I say, where you from? I asked Todd, you know, how the wife and kids and all that, right? And then I asked Todd, what do you do for work? And then he say he's work for the city. I say, the garbage man is work for the city, Todd. What do you do for the city? And he say, oh, you know, keeping the peace. He say, I keep the place safe. I thinking that Todd must see a firefighter. Cause that's what I is think about when I think about keeping the place safe. My sensei, who is blocked by the way, he come and he say, you do know that Todd is a cop, right?
I began to pass out. Then my head hit the wall.
And that ain't a big deal, you know. I train with ex-military, current Marines, you know, law enforcement, trumpets, and I don't encounter many issues. They part right-wing propaganda on COVID, and I make them tap dance like Jackson. It all works out. But this was something totally different. Because all of a sudden, I think I figured out why he may have been behaving this way. The reason behind this physically diamond-hard response to my touch. Why this man was tensing up himself just from seeing me. Because it is not because I came through the door looking like Blade's son, pocket knife, because I was dressed a certain way because it was colder than a witch tit outside, but because of something totally different that I may have overlooked. Todd's experience with people that look like me may be vastly different than what I gave him. He's a cop. And let's be real, let's be frank. You know, the origins and the current iteration of cops and policing in general is abysmal. But you all know I like to meet people where they're at, you know. You all know I like to be in the gray. And, you know, I've rolled with trumpets, I've rolled with law enforcement, and there's only really one thing that I've noticed, you know. Some of these people are irrevocably broken, for sure. There was a point in life, in their infantry or something else, where something just broke in them. And that was their flashpoint. That was their proverbial fork in the road. The fork that on one side allowed for redemption and the ability to fight and combat the skullduggery that happened to them. Or the next side that steals them in their skullduggery and makes them obdurate in their dogma. I've struggled for a long time with trying to figure out what to do with people whose beliefs directly contradict my very existence. And I've come to the conclusion that I must do absolutely nothing because it doesn't have anything to do with me. They will never experience life the way I do. And when I tell them, they will never be able to understand it the way I do. They will filter my experience through their lens. And given that we're all just our accumulated biases, they will take a biased take on my biases. That has everything to do with them. Everything to do with their experiences and their insecurities, which is such a liberating experience and understanding to have because it allows me to be free of feeling personally attacked by their beliefs. It allows me to engage with their experience from a completely neutral point, rather than what I would do, which was approach it from being a combative or defensive one. So I sat with the way that Todd and I interacted that day, and I felt mortified. I was like, damn. You know, Todd probably done all over himself like Caitlin Bennett. I wish I did more to address that. You know, I wish I did more to accommodate him. I know I don't have to, but I want to. Because I want for anybody to be able to enjoy the sport that has given me so much. And I would hate to know that my interaction with him might have prevented him from doing so. So a week passed and no Todd. And I felt so despondent about that because I was just like, damn, you know, he might never come back. I began to even tell my sensei, I was like, you know, you might consider probably partnering up someone else with the other newcomers because I was beginning to doubt my own ability to be an ambassador to this sport, a sport that I love, a sport that has literally made me sane enough to sit here and talk to you today. But all in an instance, you should have seen my eye. It glint up like when I see food. The door opened. And there was Todd. I was never and may never ever be happier to see another man again. I shout across the room to him, right? I was like, Todd, Hard go, Daddy. Everything good? And this man looked like he just saw a dead headlights. I told him I was so happy that he came back and we partnered up again. So I took a different approach with him, after which he warmed up a little bit. He started to let loose, you know? And after practice, I was thinking to myself, I was like, hey, I got a new friend. This is great. Until Todd say some skullduggery like this. Lord, you know, hey, bud, me and the missus are going to Nassau in the Christmas. Would love to take you on the boat and show you how to fish. Todd, you see this the same man. Todd, how you come into my country? Tell me that you could teach me how to fish and you could take me on the boat. I should be taking you on the boat. I should be taking you to fish fry, Todd. Not the next way around, Todd. The utter caucasity. And listen, I know he thought he was being hospitable, right? But you gotta be in your own home to be hospitable. Hospitable? You ain't home, Todd. You at Bahama. You at Atlantis. You are not home. How you could come to someone else's country and assume that you could show them things that they can't show you? The facial muscles I had to suppress in order to not resemble Popeye with his screw-up face. You can't even pronounce Nassau right, but you want to show me things about Nassau. But it ain't Todd's fault, you know. You have many people, on average they're American, but many people that come to my country with similar attitudes. Tourists that forget that this is a country with a full functional government, you know, a ferry and a mailboat system that takes us hither and thither, families that literally call this island home, yet you still think that I never fish. You still think that I never been on a boat. You think that I ain't got a boat, which I don't. But I mean, damn, you shouldn't assume that. The caucasity isn't the only driving factor that, you know, gives Americans and the like a gall to come to the Caribbean and act in such a manner. Because as we will see, Snoop LYING did something rather similar.
We want to bless you with some California herbs that we have. Yeah.
This man bring weed to Jamaica. You might as well have brought some sand for the beach too, Snoop. Let me give you some context. Bunny Wailer is Bob Marley's contemporary. You know, Bob Marley and the Wailers? You ever watch this video I do up here where I basically was talking about why Bob Marley became the frontman? Because of his marketability, which was very closely directed to his skin. Despite Bunny Wailer and Peter Tosh in particular being very competent frontmen, and especially coming from that group, however, you know, they just didn't choose them for some strange reason. That's very obvious. Anyway, that's my polemic take of the day. So Snoop LYING, right? He comes to the great Bunny Wailer's house and asks him if he would like some Cali weed. And just like Todd, I think that Snoop LYING was just trying to be hospitable, right? He just trying to get, you know, when you bring rum to someone's house, when you come to their house, that's what you think he doing, right? You know, I understand, you know, this ain't a hit piece on Snoop Dogg, at least yet. People aren't all malefactors, you know. They're just about half, you know. Sometimes 75% malefactor. But the bigotry and skullduggery that I encounter is typically 90% unintentional. I rarely get people coming to me with skullduggery with the intentions of hurting me. At least I don't think so. And if they actually do plan on hurting me, then they're very, very good at acting like they don't. That is not to say that it does not exist. One of the privileges of being a big black man with a beard that I have is being a big black man with a beard. You know, just because I'm black doesn't negate the fact that I have size and stature that kind of sets the tone. I have never been in a fight that I haven't agreed upon. And that could be attributed to a medley of things, but it's typically because I don't think that most people when they see me would want to fight me. So a great deal of the skullduggery is moments like these. Someone assuming that I smoke weed because of my Caribbean heritage. Or someone feeling like their weed is superior to Jamaica's weed because they're from America. In particular, Cali in this case. Thus, you feel like you are blessing the literal lord of reggae with your Californian weed. Which is why I desperately need you to understand Rastafari before I go any further. 10 million enslaved Africans thrown hither and thither between the 16th and the 19th century, rendered from the safety of their own domicile and thrown very callously into a boat where they are put and arranged head to toe with other Africans, sailing somewhere near Atlantic to atrocities unknown. This is the reality of the Atlantic slave trade, where 700,000 of those slaves settled in the British colony known today as Jamaica. And despite the abolition of slavery in Jamaica around 1834, I believe, prejudice based on race still endured, giving rise to Rastafari. Marcus Garvey lent a lot of framework to the movement, Garvey being one of the most pivotal political figures in all of history, not black, not Caribbean, in all of history. The founder and first president of the Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, as well as the provisional president of Africa, as pretentious and grandiose as that sounds. If anybody deserved it, it would be Garvey. His insights to Pan-Africanism were paramount and very novel, and it was essential to the identity of Pan-Africanism as it stands. And Rastafari encompassed a lot of this rhetoric and theory. The religion is also greatly influenced by Christianity, which is a dash, just a Salt Bay dash of mythology in it. But most of all, Ethiopianism is front and center stage in Rastafari. It channeled this idea that Garvey and even Malcolm X held of black nationalism, which is vastly different than white nationalism. Don't rump with me today. I know them ponytail looking fellas probably inside the comments or they watch. Don't rump with me today, you know? It cold. But I still hot. I was clamoring for the black diaspora to return to Africa. Teachings of African tradition and pride began to proliferate the entire community. And at the forefront of this, Ethiopia was considered to be the embodiment of Africa. This is all one side of a two-sided coin that is the black solution to the racial divide in the Western world. Garvey represented the black separatist movement alongside people like Malcolm X, which is different from W.E. Du Bois as well as Martin Luther King Jr., who advocated for more of an inclusive approach to the racial divide. But Garveyism waned as the Great Depression of the 30s grew, which encouraged black people to shelve their racial resentments in an effort to simply survive, even if it wasn't harmonious. But Garvey remained hopeful, not even hopeful, he remained obdurate, he remained steeled, he remained sure that there was a black messiah or a king, if you will, on the horizon. This was articulated in Garvey's play, Coronation of an African King, where Prince Cujo of Sudan was crowned, which brings us to a very tricky juncture. And the reason why people laud Garvey in particular as a prophet. Later that very year, Haile Selassie was crowned, making it seem like Garvey knew it was coming all along, and everything was airy. Garvey was supposed to be this new prophet, until Rastafari and Garveyism had a dramatic fracture. Garvey didn't like what the Rastafarians would do. Garvey didn't like where Rastafari was even going. He even went as far to call Haile Selassie a coward who rules a country where black men are chained and flogged, in reference to Ethiopia. This ushered a new era for not only Ethiopianism, but Rastafari itself. The first sovereign monarch of sub-Saharan Africa since the 1800s. Selassie came in 1930 and Rastafarians saw him to be the black messiah. They treated this man like he was the second coming of Jesus. Selassie's crowning was a sign of hope in a time of despair that came with the Great Depression. It signified the new, some would say the true, beginning of Rastafari. The first beginning would be Howell. Howell, who would be soon arrested for sedition very early on. I mean, this boy barely even got his foot out the gate before he get arrested for sedition. And that is because Howell was mostly off that yak. Howell was low-key, I hope I don't get cancelled for this, but Howell was low-key spitting some things that sound very Hitlerian. Very, Aryan. He was literally saying that black Africans were the superior race. And I can't get jiggy to that. Howell come like, the DJ start playing Full of Hell after he just started listening to Movado. Like, what we doing? We moshing or we muggling in a dance? He come like that boy who had everyone rooting for him. Until...
This is not about George Floyd! Come in every color! Come in every race!
Howell was was mentally ill and he was eventually committed. But before that even happened, Ethiopia get invaded by Italy. And Selassie I had to get exiled. It wasn't until the early 1940s, I believe, that Selassie I got back to his throne, which the Rastas then took to be the fulfillment of the prophecy as evinced by Book of Revelations. It's like all of these things just happened to happen, and the Rastafarians, they was just like, yeah, I read that in Booker. Yeah, Dre. This brings us to the 1950s when Rastafari gained a lot of momentum, but just as many enemies. Rastafari was always at odds with the establishment. That's because the Rastas saw things like government and police and class to all be weapons of Babylon. These are some of the political parts of Rastafari, which are very punk in its aesthetic. It reeked of the ethos that anarchism did. And the establishment knew this, so they immediately had an antagonistic relationship with Rastafari. Many Rastas were arrested on the grounds of marijuana. But really, we know why they was getting arrested. It's the same reason that the FBI... Anyway, you know what? Let me not even talk about that, I ain't trying to get... A stigma-stained Rastafari to be something associated with the low class. Thus, the upper echelon and the elitists boo-booed it. Or boo-hooed it, I don't know what you all say. How you all say it? This antagonism and years of refusal resulted in a militant branch of Rastafari being born. The House of Youth, Black Faith, which aimed to defend practitioners of the faith until something truly disgusting happened at the hand of the youth. A woman was killed in 1957, and it was alleged that the black youth were responsible for it, marking the most turbulent time for Rastas in JA. The militia tried to seize the whole city in the name of Selassie I, but ultimately it failed, as well as their other attempt that they did later, which also failed. All of this lent a very bad image to Rastafari. Rastas shortly thereafter became persona non grata in JA. So incoming, this self-proclaimed prophet called Claudius Henry. He basically was telling these Rastas who already marginalized in their society that, listen, I could bring you all to Africa like you all always wanted to. Here's a ticket I'm selling. And he sold tickets to a pilgrimage back to Africa to thousands of Rastas. And all of these Jamaicans and then getting ready to get on this boat thinking that they going to Liberia or something. And they was so happy because, they had it hard. It was hard in JA for a Rasta. Come to find out, there wasn't no ship. Klaus, whatever his name is, he done bamboozle everybody. Hoodwinked, run amok. It's like the Rastas them couldn't get a break. I ain't gonna lie. I feel bad for the Rastas them. I ain't gonna lie. Till Selassie I visit Jamaica in 66. 1960s, Lord, them Rasta was running mad. It breathed new life into the entire movement. You then got like the Rasta Voice, the newspaper. They was building establishment. It seemed like things was looking good for Rastafari. Even members from, the upper echelon, not just, the lowly, Buffalo Soldiers and them. You had people from, the higher ranks getting involved in Rastafari, membership from across the class stratification. And after the deaths of prominent black power people such as Malcolm and Michael X, as well as George Jackson, Rastafari sought to fill a void that was left by these pillars of blackness being taken out. It was getting popular. And with all things that are popular, they are often getting too big to be maintained. As soon as Marley came onto the scene, Rastafari exploded. He was the most visible Rasta ever. And Marley was also able to articulate some of the political underpinnings in a way that was consumable by the general public. You had people turning Rastafari from faith to fashion. Soon you had every and anybody and they ma and they bald-head Grammy talking about their Rasta. It became an aesthetic, a brand, a t-shirt, a mug, content. I don't want to get too much into that because I have something coming down the pipeline with a good friend of mine where we could talk about the commodification of culture. However, when it comes to Rastafari, this pretty much signaled its decline. And the final nail in the coffin was Selassie I's coffin when he died in 75. So when you have someone like Snoop claiming he wanted to reborn himself into Rastafari and atone for his past, You should be able to understand now why Rastas was so skeptic.
I know reggae music is a form of hip-hop music.
I'm just gonna link this, I'm just gonna leave this up here, up there, so that you could just get a grasp of how blasphemous this is. It's almost as blasphemous as Niche saying God is dead. Hip-hop came from dancehall came from dub, and dub came from experimentation surrounding reggae. I ain't saying it again. Wait till the end of this video and watch the Lee Scratch Perry video. So Snoop is showing not only his ignorance of dancehall, reggae, all of that, right? But he also just is showcasing his ignorance in regards to Jamaican culture in general. He gone to Tough Gong Studios, and that's where Bob Marley and just so many pillars of reggae and all kind of different celebrities and artists go to just to pay respects. But Snoop LYING came there thinking that he was gonna learn. He said he needed to learn reggae. He needed to learn all of these, cultural artifacts and things like that, right? And pray tell, what does he do when he gets to Tough Gong Studios?
I wanted to go and get a real, thorough understanding of reggae, Rastafari, and the whole lifestyle. Tough Gong Studios. How are ya? We be sleeping our off getting over here. Good, love one. How you been? How you been?
You look good, man. You look good.
Yes, sir.
The stuff that we're doing now is like writing with Dre School, Ariel, Angela.
My thing is, right, this is my gripe, personally. If you said you want to learn the culture, you want to get an authentic understanding of the culture, why you gonna bring your covey of white fellas, Diplo, Ariel, why y'all gonna bring them there when you could have just did the same record back in LA? Because that's where they all was. Diplo, literally the man responsible for beginning the gentrification of dance hall. Ariel, the industry titan that is responsible for acts like I'm and Charlie XCX, both artists and bands of whom I love, but damn, why you going all the way to JA? Say that you want to immerse yourself in the culture and basically aligned your team, your production team, which is essentially the McDonald's of American music. Acting like, you getting a real authentic Jamaican experience. I could make a compilation out of the times that I heard Yeah Man in this documentary alone.
Most people's first awareness of Rasta came through listening to reggae music from its legends like the late Bob Marley, Peter Tosh.
Why they try hide the fact that Snoop Dogg is doing his best Yardie impression, not even Yardie impression, Chet Hanks impression, because he don't sound like no Jamaican there. And that's why they needed Marley, not Bob Marley, but Damian Marley, his literal son, to lend some authenticity to this documentary.
You could tell that he has Rasta tendencies even before meeting him. For example, the most obvious one is herb smoking. And he was one of those first hip-hop stars that I heard come across and really be a big herb advocate. Uncle Snoop.
And they don't stop there neither. You can't tell me they ain't paid this boy to say this right here.
When I first hear about Snoop Dogg, I think he's a real Jamaican,
You thought I was real Jamaican when you first heard of me?
Yeah, man.
The skulls that were dug. This reveals an issue that was also pretty ostensible in the Bond series. The usage of locals to articulate agendas or set public opinion. It's like co-opting movements. In fact, no, it is co-opting movements. It's making the viewer think that it is okay to equate Snoop LYING with Rastafari. It is attenuating the acrimony that should be applied when trying to enter and appropriate this culture. It's exactly why, sadly, some things need to be kept behind a gate. Because there ain't no way that Under My Sling Thing should have been sampled and bastardized and parodied. A travesty. I wanted to spit on the floor when I heard this.
Berry, cantaloupe, soursop, pineapple, mango. My taste buds tango. An ice cold beverage in my honeycomb hideout.
This sample is from one of the most classic dance hall tunes ever made. Oh God! I know this boy he gotta be rolling in his grave if he ain't dead. Snoop Dogg just defecated on it like a dog do on a lawn. It was clear that Snoop Dogg had absolutely no intentions of accurately and authentically appropriating the culture. They wanted the ethos of reggae and Rastafari and Jamaican culture. They didn't want the politics. They didn't want the underpinnings, the political underpinnings of it. Just like the other litany of artists that would ride the Rasta wave until it cannot keep them afloat anymore. And this commodification of culture is articulated beautifully nearing the end of the documentary. And I know why they put it there. They put it there because they know a lot of people ain't gonna get to the end of this documentary. Because literally Bunny Wailer manager starts speaking some fucks.
And reggae and this whole thing is a huge commerce. And you have the spiritual side of it, and you have the huge commercial side of it, in spite of the spiritual. And a part of our problem, both as a music and as a culture, is how this is viewed commercially.
The importance of being earnest in your dealings. It was clear that Diplo, Snoop Dogg, whatever the director name is, they wasn't any much entertained with trying to understand this culture. He wasn't trying to reborn himself. And that's exactly why he was shortly excommunicated from the Rastafari faith. The sad part is, he had already won by that point. He had successfully commodified, gentrified, and diluted the Caribbean culture. And we as Caribbean people let him. And that's because we're often very encouraging and very inviting, very embracing of other people into our culture. That's the Caribbean way. But sometimes it bites us in the back. Much like Columbus coming to the Lucayans and giving them the Bible, and he left with the labor and the land and the resources and whatever spoils he was able to take with him. It's like what FD talks about in regards to allowing the future of hip-hop to be decided upon by others rather than the black people that it was actually created by, or the gatekeepers that were actually able to hold it with some integrity. And it's just like I talk about in this video over here, where I talk about the commodification of, well, you will hear how come I can't say that word in this video right here. I can see it then.